I'm going to do a video on my 50-hour service in my Mahindra 1533, 1538. I've actually got the 1538. What I realized today, I was over to Buddy's house and he's telling me he's going to change oil in his tractor, and then he asked for a filter wrench, and I quickly realized when I got over there that he had never changed the oil in his vehicle before, probably in his tractor or any vehicle, probably about 70 years old. So because you can't drive it to your favorite mechanic very easily, I guess a lot of people who maybe wouldn't normally service a vehicle will do work on their tractor. So I'll go through, just tell you some of the stuff I used and why I did that. So the first thing is the transmission, hydraulic filter, rear hydraulic fluid, rear end, all that is all one big fluid reservoir. It holds over 5 gallons. This one's actually a little over 8 gallons of fluid. So what's unique that's different than just changing oil in your car is you're going to need like 10 gallons worth of used oil containers, so you can take the oil obviously away. The other thing is you're going to need a bigger pan to capture all the fluid. This pan I got holds 5 gallons, and I had to pull the drain plug, drain 5 gallons out, put the drain plug back in, dump that into one of these buckets, and then keep going. So that's different than just doing the oil in your car. I ended up with CarQuest filters. It's a long story, but not my first choice, but I got what I got. So the little cartridge fuel filter is this first one here. The next one is the hydraulic filter, and I'll talk about the HST in just a second. There's your oil filter. And then the HST, if you got a hydrostat transmission, this is a factory filter. Now, what I was told by my dealer is it's fine to use aftermarket filters on a lot of the stuff, but because the HST is a higher pressure, you want the factory filter because you never know with the aftermarkets. It may fit, it may screw on, but it is a different higher pressure filter, so it's not worth risking it. For tractor fluid, I know everybody's got their favorite. I just read up, and the Chevron 1000 THF, it's pretty universally loved. A lot of places carry it in bulk. I know that some of the big box stores have their house brand and everything, and those had mixed results. Some people liked it, some people didn't. And I'm also a fan of Dello, so I use the Dello motor oil. In both of the hydraulic fluid and the motor oil are both spec'd by Mahindra, so that made it pretty easy. You are going to need a couple filters. You're going to need this for a big one for refilling the hydraulic fluid. That's right in between your feet on the floorboard. And you need this longer funnel. I use the longer funnel to get to the motor oil fill, which is this here. You need a screwdriver to pop that off, just wedge in between there and it'll lift off. And then I wedge that longer filter down above the frame for the loader and down into the fill. So it kind of wedged in there and it worked good. I also used that on the front axle, that bigger filter on the front axle. So more parts that you're going to need, or more tools. I used this filter wrench for the 2 hydraulic filter, and actually to take the motor oil filter off. But I found it much easier to use this strap wrench. You can see I'm set up for snow here. I found it much easier to use this strap wrench and go right in between here, and boom, that, the strap wrench sits on the side like that. You see that there? Set on the side. I can be back here and tighten it and take it on and off pretty easily. So that was a trick for that. The little flat blade screwdriver that you see down here, is to get that oil fill off that I just showed you down there. There's a YouTube video that a dealer did on that. You're going to need a good set of metric sockets, all the way up to 22 millimeter. It's for tightening your FEL bolts, your front end loader bolts. Those are 22 millimeter, plus some of the drain plugs are pretty big. I don't remember the size, like 19 or 21 millimeter, and they're a little different for each one. So and then you need the box end wrenches for a couple items as well. Some of the FEL bolts behind the hydraulic control for the loader, I couldn't get to with a socket, so I had to use those box wrenches. And then the fuel filter here, this is the, I'll call it the first fuel filter. They got all these crazy names for the different, there's two filters. There's a spin-on back up there, that's a Bosch only part, or a Mahindra only part. That filter, they say don't change it until you notice a power drop, so it's probably almost never going to get changed. This one is a little cartridge. I already showed you the part number for it. It's pretty easy if you have this. I added this fuel shutoff. There's another video. This is just gravity from the fuel tank. So if you pop this off, and you don't have that shutoff on, all your fuel out of your fuel tank is going to drain out. So I put that shutoff in, closed it off. There's a little bolt up here in the top. Undo that bolt, and then this thing's just come out, just kind of pull down and come out. I never use the drain here. The whole thing drops out, and you want to refill this thing as much as you can with diesel. So I pour the diesel from one right back into the other. There's probably controversy to that. I'll get lit up for that. You can put new diesel in there, but if you're in a pinch, you just want to fill this. Otherwise, you're going to have a diesel system full of air, which is no good. Very tough to get the vehicle restarted. So that's a trick with that. And then there is a gasket up in here that should come with your new filter. And I had to use a little dental pick type thing to get the old one out. It was wedged up in there. Actually, I had to hook into it and pull it out. So be aware of that. To drain, I'm on the left side of the vehicle, so I'm going to show you where the drains are. For those of you who don't know, underneath, right between the frame rails here. Sorry, this is going to be. Here's your drain for your hydraulic fluid. This is your transmission, rear end, the whole thing. All your hydraulic fluid's going to come out of there. And then staying on this left side toward the back and facing the back, this is your hydraulic filter. So if you have a shuttle shift, you'll just have this. And then for those of you who have hydrostat, there's another filter on this right hand side facing the back. Sorry. Right here. So we talked about the oil filter. The front end, this is the fill cap here. The drain, again I'm on the right side. The drain is straight underneath the front, right down here. So you're gonna drain there. You have to take this fill cap off to let a little air get in, otherwise it'll drain really slow. And then you also refill here. Now the manual I think is like around 7 quarts, and what they say to do, and there's one of these on each side, but right here, just above the tie rod end, you can see on this outside, This sets the fluid level. So when the fluid starts coming out of here, you're full. So when you get over 4 quarts, maybe 5 quarts, go real slow. Otherwise, you're just going to make a mess. So it takes a second for the fluid to come out here. It's got to go all the way across to the other axle as well. So it just takes a second. If you're just pouring in, you're gonna flood everything. So get to 4 quarts, pour a half quart in, stand up for a second, come back, pour another half quart, and just keep an eye on it so you don't end up with a mess. So that's the trick with the front end. By the way, I was told again by my dealer, I live in a cold climate, that it's fine to use the tractor hydraulic fluid in the front end. If you live in the warm climate, you can go ahead and use gear oil. So it's up to you, but this front end lives a very simple, easy life from a lubrication standpoint. So I'm sure either is just fine. So as far as 50 hours and how I've liked the tractor, I will make another video of that. Hope that answered all your questions.